Welcome to the July meetup for DevOps KC. This month, there's not really any announcements other than in September, go to DevOps Days, buy tickets. Let me know if you need to know any information about that. But we're just going to get started. The first thing we're going to do is a demo from Gitlab that we're going to try to project up here using Kubernetes. And then we're going to move on to trying to get all of us together to be able to get Kubernetes up and running on Google Cloud. And if we're successful with that, which we will be, at least for most of the room, then what we're going to do is try to do things on Kubernetes and try to talk through conceptually what we can do that's different than all of the things that we've been doing in tech for years and whatnot. So I'm going to hand things over to Adam to start, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Thanks again, Kansas City DevOps. This is Adam Olson. I know it says Hayden McKay. He's my boss. I stole his Zoom account just because he has unlimited recording. But I'm going to turn this over. I'm with Gitlab. I am a sales guy. I'm going to turn it over to Joshua Lambert for the demo. Joshua is a product manager. I'll let her introduce ourselves, but I just want everyone to know that Gitlab is an end-to-end integrated DevOps platform. We're more than just a code repo. So we appreciate the ability to sponsor the dinner there. So to provide some of the food and sponsor the this web meeting for some of us. I happen to live in Wichita, and so does another guy, Jason Drumright. So thank you for letting us not have to drive, but we look forward to a good meetup. Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can screen share and unmute and go for it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So what we'll do is kind of as noted, is give you a quick demonstration of GitLab, and won't be too long here. And we'll try and take it from, hopefully you can see my screen here. I'll share a couple of things, but we'll take it from essentially the Kubernetes kind of initial starting point 0 here. So for example, if you take a look, I have a cluster. Now I'm doing it the easy way. So I just went ahead and provisioned a cluster here a couple minutes ago. And as you can see, this is the Kubernetes kind of dashboard. I have nothing here but the standard sort of Kubernetes components, which you'll be going through and configuring yourself. So we'll start from here, and we'll go and kind of give you an indication of how to get started with GitLab and Kubernetes, some of the Kubernetes features we have, which are pretty cool, and some of our other features. Go ahead and get started there. So let me share my terminal. And you might hear my son, he's not appreciating dinner right now, so apologies for that. But anyways, so what we'll do is walk through an installation on GitLab. So, sorry, one second. So what we'll do is we'll get started and install GitLab using our Helm charts, which are the easiest way to get started in Kubernetes. For folks not aware of, our Helm is like a package manager for Kubernetes. So it makes it easy to install, upgrade, and just in general maintain your software. And so we'll use that to get started. What we'll do first is we'll install the EE version of GitLab, sort of the Enterprise Edition. And to do that first, I've gone ahead and downloaded a license on my computer, as you can see here. And of course, you can get a license if you want to try EE from our website, a free trial. Or of course, if you purchase, you'll get one as well. But you can just as easily install CE, or actually even easier as well here. So next step, we go through and add our GitLab chart repository to Helm. And from there, we can go ahead and initialize Helm itself. What this does is it essentially spins up a new pod in Kubernetes, which will go ahead and act as sort of our arms and legs in our cluster. So it'll be able to provision new things in the cluster and in general do some work in there. So that'll be quite handy. And then from there, we'll go ahead and actually kick off our Helm chart to install GitLab. So it's pretty straightforward. It's one command. You simply do helm install, and then especially specify our all-in-one Kubernetes GitLab chart. We're passing a couple kind of values here to get started. So we're passing our domain name, our base IP address, the fact that we want the EE version, our license, and then since we're using Let's Encrypt for instant SSL, my email address as well. And so really getting started as simple as that. A couple commands there, and you'll see this take maybe a couple seconds to complete. And we've gone ahead and provisioned a couple different things. So you can see here we provisioned some storage, and we've also got some additional deployments and services we've pushed. So you can see we've got GitLab here. We've also set up some dependencies, Postgres, Nginx, and Redis here, and also Let's Encrypt. And if you look back at our dashboard and do a refresh here, we'll see some new pods coming up. Let's just jump into the GitLab namespace to make it easier. And you'll see we've got a few pods coming online. The errors you see are expected, actually, contrary to what this is saying. And that's because we're using one single chart to go ahead and provision the storage, PVCs, and also all the pods. And so basically the pods are going to try and start up, realize the storage hasn't completely finished provisioning, and therefore they're going to get this error. And so if we give it a couple seconds here, it will eventually complete, and we can go ahead and get started. Sorry, I realized I'm not showing my browser, so thanks for letting me know. Here is the browser, and we'll do all our work in the browser going forward here. So hopefully you can see my browser, and this is the errors I was talking about when we went back to our dashboard, and you can see them here. We'll refresh, and you'll see a couple of these errors clear, and it'll take just another minute or so for all of our services to come online. So for those of you who don't know or are kind of perhaps new to Kubernetes, persistent volume claims are a way you can have storage set up that lasts or is beyond the sort of container itself. And this way, if you update the container or otherwise do some work, that data is not going to go away and disappear. So it's sort of like an external, perhaps Docker volume, for example, to perhaps provide an analogy. So we have Redis up and running. We have Postgres also up and running. And now we're just waiting for GitLab itself to come on up and finish. One thing to know with Kubernetes is that even though our pod is in fact at this point in time running, those errors will stay on the dashboard up until the point where the health check passes. And so in this case, our GitLab server is kind of reconfiguring itself. And so the health check is not operational because our web server isn't running yet. And so those errors will still persist, even though the pod is in fact healthy and running. So just a little couple tidbits there as far as working with Kubernetes. But again, this will take just a couple seconds here, and then this will be finished. And then we can hop into our brand new configured GitLab instance, which we just, again, pushed on Kubernetes here. By the way, I do have the chat open, so if there are questions, if I'm not sharing something or it's not coming through cleanly, let me know, and we can get that working. So let's take another couple seconds here. What's happens is GitLab essentially has to reconfigure itself briefly with the information that we pass to it through the Helm command. So it's going to go ahead and install the license. It'll also go ahead and, of course, configure the database and the Redis clusters to the proper DNS names, and in general, get itself ready to go. It'll also go through and, of course, set up the database, initial schema, and some initial data inside. And again, this should be wrapping up here very, very soon. And so this will be almost essentially ready to go here. And here we go. So now we got our stuff coming online. Our SSH handler, Gitly, is coming online for Git, and you can see we're now serving some requests. So if we are to go ahead and open up our DNS name, we should, knock on wood, get a server, and we are. That's fantastic. So I'll go ahead and set an initial root password. If you haven't specified one in the chart, it will ask you for one. But in this case, we kind of want to show off the developer workflow, not necessarily the admin workflow. So let's go ahead and register as someone new. So we'll just do that really quickly here and get ourselves all signed up. Click on register. And we have a new account on our GitLab instance, and we're all set. So I can go ahead and create a new group, for example. This is a great way to collaborate with some of your team members, perhaps have some projects that are related to each other in the same place. So I'll go do that quickly here. We'll call it my team. Make it a public group, because why not? And we'll also create a Mattermost account as well. So GitLab comes pre-baked in with Mattermost, an open source Slack alternative. So you can do some chatting, some chat ops commands you'll see later, and in general collaborate. And of course, you're also free to connect your own chat ops, for example, as well for things like Slack, and also some easy integration for those. So our group is now done. We'll go ahead and create ourselves a project. To save ourselves some time here, and so folks don't have to watch me do some typos on screen, we'll simply import from a existing repository. So we'll just do that real fast here. We'll call it Ruby. This is a really simple Ruby repository, as you'll see in a second. And while this is importing, we'll take just about a couple seconds. We'll go through and finish our integration with Mattermost. So we pop in here, find our Mattermost / commands, and we can simply turn those on as simple as clicking install and clicking on save. And we now have Mattermost configured for our team. So as you can see, our repository finished. We have a Docker file, which is pretty simple, as well as our server Ruby file, which again is simply hello world. Again, really straightforward here. Again, the repository isn't the idea here, or the code complexity isn't the idea, but rather we want to kind of show off some of the CI and CD capabilities, especially some of the unique Kubernetes stuff that we have. So let's go ahead and actually configure CI and CD, and we'll get started with a template that we have for Kubernetes. And this is our Kubernetes template with Canary. The cool thing about this is that you can actually get going with Kubernetes as long as your code has a Docker file, or it can work with a build pack as simple as typing in the base domain of your GitLab server, and that's it, in fact. So we'll come this back to master, and we'll get our first pipeline running. And we'll take a look at it now. So this little icon here, once you have CI configured, will give you a constant look as to the health of your master branch. Right now we have a pipeline running on our master branch because we just committed our definition there. And let's take a look at that pipeline now. So you got 4 jobs, as you can see, or 4 stages, each having one single job: build, staging, canary, and production. Let's take a look at our build stage. What this will do is it will go ahead and build our Docker container based on that Docker file. So in this case, we're going to start from the Ruby base image. We'll go ahead and add our server Ruby code, and then just repackage it and ship it off to our integrated container registry. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and deploy into staging. And this is as simple as, in this case, using that existing image that we just pushed, and then creating the associated Kubernetes pieces. So the new namespace, deployment, service, and then away it goes. And so you can see that actually it's just finished here. Now, let's go ahead and complete this deployment out to production. It'll take just a second here to do. But while we're doing that, let's go ahead and take a look at our Mattermost server and show you off some of the chat op stuff while we're doing that final deploy. So here's Mattermost, and we can kind of get an idea how easy it is to work with as well. So again, we include this by default. You also can use Slack, but the / commands are pretty easy. You simply type in your / command you configured earlier, which you saw just briefly here, and you can simply connect to your account, authorize that, and we're now all set to go ahead and utilize our / commands. And again, because a lot of the innovation, a lot of the new ideas, and kind of back and forth and exchange happens in chat these days, it's really helpful if you can capture this directly in in your chat client and move it off into your issue repository, whether it's Jira or in this case GitLab. And so it's pretty easy to go ahead and get started. You can simply do like issue new. I'll say improve our homepage because it's just hello world. And it's as simple as that to go ahead and create a new new issue. And we can capture whatever idea we have coming out of chat. And here we go. So here's our first issue, all created here in our integrated issue tracker. So that's great, right? This is a pretty important one. We have a hello world page. That's obviously not good enough. So let's go ahead and get this scheduled for work. For that, we'll use our issue boards. Issue boards are pretty cool. They're a flexible way to have, again, a variety of workflows, whether it's Kanban or Scrum. You can kind of make it your own. You can add your own list. You can also have different sort of dashboards or issue boards for each team. In this case, the defaults are awesome for us, to do and doing. So we'll simply drag this guy over from the backlog into doing because we want to improve this right now. So let's go back to our repository, take a look at our server.ruby file, and we can then make our amazing change, improve our homepage. That's pretty awesome. In this case, we'll actually go through and change our target branch to say improved homepage. And we put the 1 in front in this case because that actually will automatically tell GitLab that this branch and this corresponding merge request are actually related to the issue that we just set up. And so you can see in this case, we automatically add closes number 1 because that when this merge request gets accepted and merged, we want that corresponding issue to get closed because we just addressed it. So we now have a new pipeline running, again, because we just committed made a new branch and committed a change. And so this is going to be running in that feature branch. You can see the stages are a little bit different in this case because we've defined our stages to be relevant with some of them for non-master branches and some only for master. For example, you don't want to do deploys to production and anything but your sort of perhaps master branch, if you will. And so you can define that with GitLab pretty easily. So we went ahead and we built our container. And we're now going to go ahead and, in this case, build or deploy to a temporary review environment. So these are really cool and leverage a great feature of Kubernetes, which is it's really easy to go ahead and just turn on new environments and just go ahead and set new things up, right? So we've gone ahead and created a new temporary environment. You can see we've gone ahead and sort of done the Kubernetes deployment of the secret, the namespace, and the new deployment here. And so we have a brand new environment ready to go. And the great thing is that this is, again, temporary only for this branch, and it will always stay up to date. And so as you make new commits to this branch, we'll go ahead and push those changes up to this new environment. And so it's a live look at all these changes. So let's take a look at this now. Here is our environment page, and you can see we can simply click on the URL here, but we also link the URL back on the merge request. So now that we have our review deployment done, we actually will show everyone who's coming here to this merge request to get the current status. We'll tell them, you know what, there is a live look at this environment, and you can simply click here, get taken right to the change, and you can see we have our new updated code right here, which makes it easy to find for perhaps other stakeholders like UX or product or marketing who might have to like chase a developer down or check out some code, run it themselves, which can be a kind of a big drag. In this case, simple URL here happens automatically, no effort from the developer, and again, really helps collaboration as well.
Hey, Josh, this is Adam. How are we doing on time?
Hopefully we're good. We'll kind of keep it going here.
Yeah, I think they got about 2 more minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. We've heard of deployment there. We also can capture monitoring metrics as well. So you can see here, we'll pull in some CPU and performance metrics and display them from Kubernetes automatically for you. We also have a web terminal as well. So if you wanted to dive right into the container that is running your code, you can check it out and make some modifications pretty easily, save those back, restart your server, whatever you have to do to figure out what's going on. And then we can also take this and then go ahead and even do a limited deployment, in this case, to, for example, production. And so, maybe you want to take our, for example, review code, push it to our canary deploy, And what this will do is kind of leverage Kubernetes' built-in support for canaries to actually kind of render this on the screen here. And so you can do, again, like a protected or limited release of your code. You can see we're spinning up a new canary pod here. And once this comes online, we'll be able to then sort of have our test code running and we'll serve sort of a percentage of our code base, of our users rather, like 50% of the time here, you'll get the new code. Takes a second for it to hit the load balancer here. Again, you'll see the sort of 50% chance of getting the new version versus the old version. Again, this provides you a pretty nice way to have a limited release of your code, low risk. Once it's working well there, you can go ahead and just deploy it out to everyone by just hitting the button here and redeploying back out to production. So some cool options there for Kubernetes and GitLab. Make it really easy. Got some nice features here for again, kind of deploying on the service and making it easy.
Thanks, Josh. Any questions for Josh while he's on? I know he's on the East Coast, and I asked if we could go first, so I apologize that we jumped into it. I know the goal is to play with Kubernetes the hard way, but we just wanted to show you a little bit of how Kubernetes works really easily, or the easy way with GitLab. Any questions?
This is Aaron. That was super rad. Like, I remember having to piece together all those things. I'm actually floored at like how awesome that workflow is. So that's rad. That's awesome. Does anybody have questions? We've got no hands up in the room at this point. And you said the community edition, we can just like download that and possibly set that right up on the Kubernetes cluster we're about to run.
Yeah, so absolutely. So there's a Helm chart, and simply by not specifying the type, it'll utilize the community edition, and you can get all the auto deployment features that we showed you here. The only thing you won't get is this kind of cool little chart here showing canary versus production. Other than that, everything else is in the CE version.
Yeah, you just don't get canary deploys. And I think up at the top of the chat, I have some of the basic GitLab Kubernetes documentation and the examples. Are those right, Josh?
I can't see that. I'm not seeing it in chat, but I'm sure you got it.
Which chat in Slack?
In Zoom. I apologize.
I see a conversation about cashews being a droop.
Yeah, you might have joined a little later. Hang on. Here, I'll reposting them.
There we go.
And there we go.
I'll throw that in the Slack channel then too.
And we'll get all the chat will come with the Zoom recording and whatnot.
Rad.
Yeah. Any other questions for Josh before we cut Josh loose?
Don't have any questions from in the room. Josh, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Enjoy Kubernetes. It's awesome.
I'm going to selfishly show one screen and then give it back to you.
Okay.
So GitLab is just more than a code repo, right? We do all this stuff from idea to production, right? Most people just think of us as the code repo. You saw some of the GitLab CI stuff, some of the CI/CD stuff, but I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. We're not going to run through any of it. I just want you guys to see the image. It'll be part of the recording. And it's back to you, Aaron.